Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Brown Ramsperger. I'm an author, a book coach, a humanitarian, and teacher. I'm also the creator of Step Into Your Story and author of the award-winning novel, The Shores of Our Souls. I began Story Hour here on my Facebook author page to connect writers and readers. It's my joy to do so. And we have another treat today. Just to let you know, if you're seeing this in a replay, we're doing our live at a slightly different time this week so we can have this amazing guest on with us. I'd like to welcome Melanie Gorman, business coach extraordinaire. Welcome, Melanie.
Kathy, that's so nice. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to be here with you. So let me tell everybody a little bit about Melanie. Melanie Gorman is Senior Vice President of Your Tango Experts, a group of coaches, counselors, a group for coaches, counselors, and communicators who write. She's also a stellar business coach and my business coach. Her expertise ranges from branding, avatar and ideal client work, to social media placement, and business mindset to content marketing and SEO, search engine optimization. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. She's also a counselor with a master's in counseling psychology and worked for several years as a relationship counselor and coach. And you can find her relationship articles on Your Tango if you search. She also worked for Dr. John Gray. You may have heard of him, author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And she was with him from 2001 to 2009. So for the whole launch of his book and his brand and it all. And she says that the insight gained from working with the godfather of self-help was immeasurable. I'm sure it was. And Melanie's been with Your Tango, which we'll talk a tiny bit about today since 2009. She teaches all these topics on Your Tango weekly business coaching class. And she also created the great Facebook Live Starve the Fear during COVID. About the same time I created this Facebook Live for readers and writers. We've been talking about Facebook Lives for a while as a way to reach our audiences, and it really has worked for me, and I hope everybody here is enjoying it. So, welcome again, Melanie. Today we're going to talk a little bit about SEO first, and then we'll branch into Google Analytics and how blogging fits into it all. But first, I'd really like to ask, so why does an author need SEO anyway?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. So that's such a good, but meaty question, Kathy. I'd say a couple of things. One is that SEO is going to be different if you're a novelist versus if you are writing like a self-help book or you're writing about service-oriented topics. Mm-hmm. So let me talk about them differently. As a novelist, it's really important that you own the space that's the name of your book, right? So it's very, you don't want somebody else grabbing your name. You don't want somebody else like taking your traffic, buying another book when they think they're buying your book. So to some degree, it's about ownership of your intellectual property and knowing that you are preserving the integrity of all the good work you've done, because we all know writing is really hard. And it's not as hard for everybody, but there's a whole lengthy process to it. So to sort of turn that over to people without taking some consideration for how the internet actually works it's not a smart business move. So as a novelist, your SEO often is going to be focused on your name and the name of your book or the name of the book series. Like there's ways that you can sort of play with that. And ultimately what you're really working for is that if someone goes to Google and says, how do I find Shores of the Soul? We want them to find you because they're doing that. So searching on Google is also laced with intention. And so it's very important to think about that, because it's not like the information is just showing up and they're just being presented it like a title on CNN or whatever, right? They're really looking for you. They care. So you want that. You want that reader to come and find your book because you really want to get the book in front of them. So novelists need to focus on the connection between their name and the names of their books. Some SEO people will say new website for every book, right? Which is a lot of work. Some SEO people will say make the hub around your name and then the body of your work sort of falls out from it. So people can decide that for themselves. But really what, as a novelist, you're trying to do is make sure that when someone goes looking for you, they find you, right?
Right.
So you know what I mean? Uh, so now, let's say your book is just a piece of a bigger picture, right? So you're also a coach, you're also a healer of some kind, or you are a teacher. I mean, it applies to all of it. You know, you could write a book about mechanics, and you know, you sell mechanics, so you know, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So you know, SEO is really principally the same independent of industry, right? So like I have clients, I've had clients over the years that do everything from like you know, coaching and therapy to air conditioners. You know what I mean? It's just
Well,
things.
it's products and services, right? Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So SEO is the art and the science of how people go to the internet and look for what you offer. And it's the practice of writing on a page, so it's a landing page or a blog, writing the content in a way that it matches up with the way people think and the queries that they're asking, so they can get through their decision process to be able to take a step. And this step could be, I want to go to Amazon and buy that book. I want to get on their mailing list because I really like what they have to say. You know, I want to call them for whatever, right? So you're looking to, really good SEO starts with branding and avatar work, where you understand who you're talking to. And you're smiling, Kathy.
I've heard this before, and it works. It does work.
It does. And SEO is one of those things that the proof is in the pudding, and there's lots of examples of how it works. The thing that's hard for people about SEO is that it's a time investment, right? So it's not direct response marketing where you buy an ad and you spend, you know, $1,000 and you get you know, 100 clicks. Like, it's not that kind of equation. When SEO is really done right, it allows people to continue to bring traffic, interested people who are searching for you to your website year over year over year. And you can do lots of things within SEO. You can update old articles and make them new again.
Yeah.
I'm getting better with it. But that said, you know, when you're really trying to understand this piece about avatar, like we talked about, it's really critical so you don't waste time. Because you know, a novelist is going to, you know, like when you think about it, like if you wrote a great romance novel and, you know, you're really speaking to, you know, people that want to read a book about a great love story that has historic implications and it tells blah, 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 like, you know that, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole different SEO project than someone that says, you know, I'm looking for a life transition coach because I would like to understand how to up level my career. I know what I was saying. I was saying that I was working on a refurbished article on Google My Business, right? And so one of the things that's so interesting about content is that in SEO work, when you really know your audience, you can take old stuff and make it new based on trends. So what I did in this article was I made it, there's a bunch of Google My Business changes that have happened because of COVID. So I updated it, you know? So sometimes writing, when you really get into an SEO project, it's an ongoing thing, a little bit all the time, right? So it's important to have good expectations.
Builds on itself. I don't think that's something people really realize, because they may have heard of keywords, or they may have heard of even key phrases, or Google My Business, but they don't realize how it builds on itself. Um, and you have to have patience. But once you have the patience,
Mm-hmm.
I think all of our work together, for me, has really yielded in the past 3 months. It's like a big garden now. It is like a garden, you know? You
Yeah,
plant
yeah.
the seeds.
Yep.
They first they don't come up, then they come up like this the next spring, then they
Yep.
come up like this, and then they've got a tree. So
That's the idea. And you know, when you are really targeted from the beginning, then what happens is you're telling a story to Google is what you're doing, right? So you guys are writers, and you know, you all read lots of books, and think about that. Like, your whole website is the narrative between you and your in Google. And what you're attempting to do is to help that algorithm understand the words and the vocabulary that really marry up with your work.
mm.
Yeah.
So, what are the three main things an author can do, or anybody, but especially an author, um, to increase SEO? Say they're just getting started out, or they can Google their name and their business and it comes up, but the phrasing for what they want is not there, which is most
Yeah,
of us authors,
yeah,
because
yeah.
we don't, I still don't get it. I'm so thankful for you. I'm beginning to understand it a lot better.
Hmm.
But what are how would you have someone start to increase their SEO value?
So
Your Google Analytics, one of the two, they kind of go hand in hand.
yeah, and so okay, so the first thing I would say is you want to understand who you're looking to attract to the website. So the very first exercise is really about if you could bring in any kind of demographic or audience profile or reader, who are they, right? Is it a lover of romance books? And so it's really not all that specific. It's just they like this kind of genre, right? Or is it someone with a certain set of problems or a certain set of challenges? Like, who is the person you're trying to bring to the website? And you have to understand that first, because everything stems from there. It is just like a garden. Are you planting your seeds in soil that's really sandy or really has lots of clay in it, right? You're going to have a totally different gardening approach, right? To use your metaphor. So you need to understand who that avatar is. And when I do this kind of work with people, I really suggest that they get meaty and detailed about it. So sometimes it's great to write a little narrative about that person and personify them, right? So that you start to think about what must go on in their life for them to be in a place where they say, I need help, I want answers, I want entertainment, right? Whatever it is, like what is going to happen? It's going to lead and compel somebody to go to Google and say, how do I, whatever, right? So you should rank for your name. Okay, most of us are not called named John Smith. Now, if you're named John Smith, I'm sorry, right? You might want to call you Mr. John Smith or
Why I
John
got
Smith
married was
Jr.
to change my name from Brown to Ramsperger.
I remember this. I remember this, right? So, but Ramsperger's hard because it's hard to spell,
I
right?
know, you just can't
So,
win, but oh well.
okay, I figured it out after all these years. So, what you want to do, you should rank for your name and the obvious stuff, like things that are like, like really specific. So if your novel is called, How to Chop Down a Tree Using a Dull Axe, well, you should rank for that because who says that, right? But if you're writing it, you know what I mean? Like, so if it's unique, right, you should get it. If
Right.
it's common, it's harder, right? It's definitely harder. And then you got to work harder for it. So know your avatar, know who you are, and know what it is that, like, what are the problems and the situations facing someone that would come to your website looking for you. So that is all going to show up on the landing pages of your website. So your landing pages are really better off if there's less information and they're more specific. So never worry that you have like under a service area, like what if you offer 4 different kinds of coaching? Well, write 4 different pages, right? Don't feel like you have to like clump it all together because SEO is about vocabulary and about the nuances around the words. So if you're a life transition coach, there are synonyms around that you can work with, but they don't blend as well with career or interview coaching. Those are different topics, right? So as writers, we need to understand like sort of that analogy of does it belong here or is it an animal of a different with different spots? Like if it's different, it ought to be on a different page. And this is a mistake people make a lot is they say, I don't want to have 12 pages in my navigation or 20 pages in my navigation. So I'm going to do, I'm going to put them all together. And when they do that, the problem is it dilutes the keywords. So instead of it being all about life transition coaching, it's
People
life
don't
career.
read it either.
Well, they don't because they don't understand how it reflects back their need. Yeah. So don't be afraid. On a landing page, less is more. Single focus on your topics, right? And you want to write, and this is one of my big tips, write in super common language, right? So don't call yourself a Fitz or Schnitzel coach. Like who the heck knows what that is, right? Call yourself a life coach if that's what you are. People say stuff. It's crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So call your name, call it what it is, right? And then when you do that, make it your own in the copy where you're describing it. But as you're really labeling yourself, use words that people can relate to, where they don't have to get the thesaurus or the dictionary out to figure out what you're trying to say, right? But they're actually able to say, okay, I know I need a life coach. Okay, and she specializes in women over 50, right? Or she specializes in interracial relationships, or she specializes in, bi-coastal relationships, whatever, right? You get the idea. So know your avatar, arrange your website in a way that it's clear so that people know where they're going and that each individual page serves its own unique purpose, right? So I would say that. And the third thing I would say is you must supplement your website with a blog, right? And the reason that that's important is that within that umbrella of life coach are all the different minute issues that people deal with that are really meaningful to me. And so I go to Google or my phone and use my microphone, right? And I look those things up. So SEO changed forever when we really got to a place where our phones were living on our person, right? And so now what we do is we say, where's a life coach near me? And we just speak it. And what Google now does is it will say, oh, GPS is here, connect that to the map, right? And the Google My Business, and bam, here's a life coach 3/10 of a mile away, right? It's amazing what it can do because we want convenience in our lives as people. We don't want to have to go hunt around. So the people that are getting the business are the people whose websites are clear, they're written in language that's common. They're not talking over people with so much jargon, but they're not dumbing it down and making people feel like they're dumb, right? As if they don't understand it. They're making an effort to communicate clearly as opposed to translate what they think they need to say to keep looking good or whatever that is, right? So write your website, more pages that are specific to what you need, and then you fill it out with the blog. And you really are going to write your blog as often as you can because there's an abundance of things you could write about, so there's not a shortage.
So I want to get to blogging in a second, but and thank you for those first three. So I want to translate this to people who don't coach out there, who are just authors. And so instead of a need, they would be looking for a certain type of genre, right? And so when I write, I'm sort of writing to this overlord, for lack of a better word. When I review and revise, I am doing it for the reader. It's the same sort of thing, and on an author website, I'm assuming that I'll call them tabs, are sort of the same sort of thing too. You wouldn't put your book description on the page that was frequently asked questions, for instance. I mean, that might be a bad example, but I've seen that. I've seen all kinds of jumbles. And the other thing is that being a coach and a writer has helped me, because I was a writer and then a coach and then a writer and then a coach. It just goes like that. You're kind of the same, Melanie. Mm-hmm. Is that I realize that everything's a theme too. Uh-huh. And people are still looking for, say they go to a romance novel because their relationship isn't working and they somehow figure it out through that. So I think of anytime I'm online now as I'm sort of selling my book in a nonfiction way. I'm talking about the themes. So sorry for that long expose, but I want to make sure people don't say, oh, it's not for me, because I've heard that a lot from my clients over the years.
Uh-huh.
Why would you blog? They actually love to blog, but why do I need a Facebook page to be an author or something like that? But we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could hear them protesting out there. So I just wanted to make sure that they know that this is something that will behoove all authors, not just nonfiction ones either, because it's helped me immensely. Okay, so let's continue about blogging. So I guess what I'm rephrasing this in my mind as we go. So somebody on Google My Business
Huh?
says, how do I find a mystery novel? That's not exactly the way, looking for a mystery novel. Maybe they just put in mystery novel. And then in terms of my own experience, it would go straight to my blog.
So is your question, how does somebody go from a search query to finding you?
Yeah, and I'm assuming that the blog is the connecting piece, but maybe not. I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, it really depends on what the query is, right? So if somebody says, I'll say a couple things. One is that when people do their queries, if they're looking for a mystery novel, chances are they're a mystery reader, right? And so there's someone that has probably read potentially lots of mysteries. And so they're going to have qualities to that search that try to weed out the stuff they already know, because they want to find the stuff that's new or interesting or noir, or whatever their special thing is that they want to find, right? So the queries are usually by the user made longer. So your phrase may not be mystery novels. It might be mystery novels about the 1800s, right? Or mystery novels that from World War II, or mystery novels that mirror history in real life, like whatever, right?
Yeah.
So part of the deal with SEO is that the more specific a search is, for us, it's actually better, because then the person is sort of like cutting the wheat from the chaff, and they're saying, I want to find this specific thing. So when you know the avatar and you know who you're writing to, then you can say, I am this specific, instance for this particular query. And SEO requires tools, right? So this is where the rubber meets the road for a lot of people, is that the keyword research to figure out how many people are looking for a specific query are tools that have to be paid for. So there are no free tools out there that give you everything you need. Some people will find query data in Google AdWords, right? But the AdWord information, so when I say query data, what I'm really saying is 50 people a month look this up on average over a year, right? So when you think about the big picture of your business and you think about the value of writing, part of what you're looking for is enough people that really look it up to actually give you a net result that you can live on or sell your books to or whatever it might be. So you want the extra thoughtfulness so that you don't waste time writing about topics that are either way overly saturated or are not really looked for at all. And that happens a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm also really amazed at how many people are very particular about what they want to read now. It's become more and more niche. And so it's a great time to be writing. Thank you. That was a really great answer to that. It was something I didn't understand completely, and now I do. So I'm going to ask this now. Can an author build his or her readership from social media presence alone?
It depends. I mean, I think if I was advising someone, what I would say is you probably need a website. I'm going to say 95% of the time you need a website. And that 5% variable that's left out are for people who become like social media little celebrities, right? And so it's totally possible that you can write a cult classic that people just fall in love with, and they're sharing it with all their friends, and like you remember books like this. Like I remember when Eat, Pray, Love came out, like all my friends read it and we all read it together and we all talked about it and all that sort of stuff.
Or Brene Brown, or back when I was a kid, J.D. Salinger. Like, yeah.
I mean, there's so many things, but they didn't talk about it in the same way when we were kids that they do now. So social media allows you to develop influence over something, and there are social media influencers, right? So let's say Kim Kardashian started reading Shores of the Soul, and she put a picture. She's like, "Look at me," right? Okay, we'll put that out to the universe, Kim. Let's go read her book, right? But imagine that happened. All of a sudden, people would say, "What's happening?" I had a client. This is a couple years ago. She was a recipe writer and really interesting, kind of a little stodgy, a little nice lady, but she definitely had her way about her, right? So she insisted on creating recipes a certain way, and she was going on vacation. And so the recipe that we worked on before she went on vacation was about using apple cider vinegar. This is really random, right? But it was about apple cider vinegar. And it was about the health properties of having apple. Now, this today, right? So this is probably 4 years ago. So she writes this recipe, and it's an article about apple cider vinegar with a recipe at the bottom, right? And the recipe was really like, how big should your shot be every day? How many should you take? Like, it was that kind of stuff, right? And sure enough, on Twitter, so my client goes on vacation. On Twitter, Kim Kardashian tweets that she's drinking apple cider vinegar twice a day to lose weight, right? So now she's doing this, and my client's article shoots to the very top of Google, right? All the editors at your Tango are like, "Do we know anything about apple cider vinegar?" And I'm like, "Well, that just so happens I do," right? Totally random, right? So this article goes from your Tango to Yahoo, and then is up on the first page of search for months because Kim Kardashian had right? I mean, it's just, so that can happen, right? Social media is really powerful, right? And the trick with it is to know where you belong, right? So you shouldn't, and I'm using the big should word right now, but you shouldn't do everything, right? No one has enough time to be on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram. Who's got time for this, right? Pick your lane, master your lane, right? And if you're going to do book clubs, well, Facebook is your place because you can do groups, right? If you want to go do drop-in on women's groups and organizations, Facebook is your place. Now, no one's letting you into their group if you're not on Facebook to be verified, okay? So there's social proof that's important as well. If you are doing a book that has like companion products that go with it, like you've got a coffee mug that goes with your book and blah, 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 be on Instagram. You know what I mean? Be on Instagram. So you want to think through where your people are. And there's also demographic information, right? Don't do LinkedIn, by the way. Don't waste your time on LinkedIn because no one shares content from LinkedIn. I mean, the numbers are crazy, right? Nobody shares it. And that's because people on LinkedIn are looking for jobs, right? They don't want to hear what book you're reading in your quiet time while you're being unemployed and nobody's paying attention to you, right? So anyways, that's what I would say about that.
Well, thanks. And I just want to say that if you don't know it, Twitter, you've got to be on Twitter. It's a pain in my what, but because I much prefer Facebook, and I love Pinterest. But that's just my little guilty pleasure, Pinterest, and Instagram. And I've really come to enjoy Instagram. But I this year, that was my goal, was to be on Twitter more, and it's working. So I just want to put that one in there just for me. If you're looking for a publisher or an agent or somebody that is an influencer, then that's the place. But if you're looking for your readers, Facebook. Yeah. All right. So I just want to brainstorm maybe 2 or 3 blogs that an author would be writing. And we can even use my book as an example if you want, because thank you for reading it, so you know. Um, so I just wonder what we could even do, one header for Doors of Our Souls for a blog, just so people know where you're going with this. I don't want to put you on the spot either. You can.
I don't mind being put on the spot.
All right. Okay.
You know, there's a couple parts of your book that I found interesting, right? Beyond the narrative, like beyond the storytelling. Like,
Thanks.
you know, why are we drawn to people that on the surface look like they're going to be really hard to be in relationship with? Like, that could be a great article. You know, your 2 main characters, like if you just like pluck them out of the thin air and you said, do these 2 people look like they're going to be soulmates, right? I don't know, we'd all say yes, right?
That's what I should do. I should do a blog, like a vlog about them on a dating game.
That's hilarious.
Or Match.com. See, this is how we work together, guys. That's why she's such a great coach. Keep going.
Well, like, okay, so take that idea. Like, imagine if you were doing Tinder and like, would you swipe left or would you swipe right for this? Like, I mean, it could be totally funny. So, okay, so something about like the essential conflict in the book, like, you know, why do we think star-crossed lovers? Why are we so attracted to star-crossed lovers in a romance novel? You know what I mean? Or what can novels about multicultural relationships, you know, teach us about how to be better human beings?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's not directly about the book, but it's about the essential elements of it. And then at the bottom of it, you say, if you want to really see how this works, go buy Shores of the Soul and send them a link to Amazon, right? Yeah. So to me, novels are harder, right, in terms of what to write about, because you as the writer know the essential ingredients of how hard it was to bring those 2 people together. So for me, the conflict is the place to really pay attention to in like content that you would write that helps to sell the book, right? Mm-hmm. So it really is kind of putting on a little bit of your editorial hat and looking down and saying, why did this work, right? And so my question then would be, who's the audience? Are you writing to other novelists that want to find their own way to tell a story like yours? You know, are you writing to book marketers that are like, why do people buy these books, right? Maybe a little both, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That was fantastic. And now I have a new blog.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it.
So finally, I have checked, and I'm going to check while you answer this question again for questions. I think because it's a Wednesday, people will watch it later and ask questions later too. But we're also covering a lot of ground here in half an hour, a little more than half an hour. So I hope you'll touch on guest blogging and articles on places like Your Tango and HuffPost.
Yeah.
And versus your own site. Obviously, if you can do it all, then that's great. But I know you have an opinion about that, so I'd love it if you share it.
Well, I think that in the same way that social media is intending to, like, if you write an article on your blog and then you share it on Facebook as an example, or Twitter, then what happens is people see that and then they go, oh, I'm curious, and they click and they come back to the website. So guest blogging to some degree is the same principle. You're trying to bring something that you've published on your site to another place and ask them to come back to your website. So that's one way that guest blogging works, and that's how it works on Your Tango. We take original content, we give headlines if people need help with that, we teach writing, like all of that's possible. And you can repost, right? So for a lot of people, that's a huge eye-opener, because they think, oh, there's more, there's more opportunity with this article. I can just reshare the whole thing as is, right? So that's one version of guest posting. And the benefit of that is bigger audience, more eyeballs to see.
And street credibility too is what I call it. Like If you're on your Tango these days, people notice.
They do.
They do.
And you get, and there's a lot that goes with it, the editing, this, all the pieces that really support, taking your content from good to great, right? Because as writers, we need editors. I mean, I need an editor for sure.
We all do.
Yeah. So that's one version of it. Now, for other guest opportunities, like let's say you were working on a new novel, and it was from maybe it's more of a memoir, right? And you wanted to write a story about what led you to write your latest book. Elephant Journal is a fantastic website to pitch and publish. So in that instance, what you're doing is you're pitching the website, right, to write an original article. So you're giving them content. They're not paying you, you're giving them content. Now you're paid through a byline and a link. So here's what I always tell people. You must get the byline and you must get a link back to your website or it's not worth your time, okay? So, because what the link does is, this is an SEO thing, but when you click the link and it sends traffic back to your website goes, oh, high authority sites are clicking into my site. That's meaningful. So there's a big piece of SEO that's about reputation. And the model for it is playgrounds. So, if you and I just started going to the same high school together, right? And you've been there a little while, and I show up on the scene, and I'm this like cool kid smoking a cigarette on the side of the thing, right? And you're like, oh, I want to be like her, and we become friends, and you're super popular. Now I'm popular. But if you look at me smoking this cigarette on the side of the thing, and you're like, that is awful, and da da da, well, my popularity goes down, right? So there's a reputation sharing that happens when popular is attracted to something that's new, and it influences how popular the new thing is. So on your website, if Elephant Journal links to your website, well, they're big and popular and people may not know you, and all of a sudden your popularity starts to go up. So linking in that way is a major SEO strategy. It's also pretty hard to do, right? Because you're pitching and you're writing these kind of blurby things, and you guys know about pitching because you've pitched your books and whatever different things. So you never write until you get a yes, right? So unlike your novel or your self-help book or your whatever that you're starting on the process because you're writing a book proposal and all those good juicy things, you wait to write the article until you get the yes. And if you don't get a response, and you've set the clock, right? So I tell people, give them 3 weeks. If you haven't heard back from a pitch that you put out there to someone because it's an original pitch in 3 weeks, assume it's off the table, go to the next one, right? So then take the same pitch you did at Elephant Journal, take it to Bustle or wherever, right? So you can take your ideas down the road, but you never want to pitch Bustle and Elephant Journal the same day. Because what if they both say yes?
Right.
Right, then you're in trouble. So it's a long game, but guest posting is really effective for building your traffic to your website, and all of that reputation begets itself. So, yeah.
Great answer. I always learn something new. I mean, I thought I knew a lot about that, but I learned a little tidbit. Thank you. Okay. Anything you'd like to add? And that's what I was going to say. Everybody, put a call to action into everything. Your posts, your tweets, your blogs, and maybe a line about who you are. And if you're trying to pitch your book, obviously a link to your book.
Yeah.
But you can't put 2 links in a call to action. You can only put 1. Isn't that correct, Melanie?
Typically, I mean, call to action at the bottom of a blog is sort of like a journalist bio. So when you're writing on your website and you do a call to action, use first person pronoun and have a link, right? So that takes them to whatever the next step is. And that could be to Amazon to buy the book, or, to a service page, like, depending upon what you're asking them to do. Call to action on another website should be written in third person. So write it about yourself, right? So Melanie Gorman, and include a credential, MA, is the senior VP with your Tango experts, blah, blah, blah. And then one link them off. If you're writing that article on Elephant Journal, they might let you get away with 2 because every website has different sort of criteria for how you're allowed to advertise yourself. The journalist bio is going to give you the greatest level of credibility, and that's really just 2 sentences written in third person. Lead with who you are and why you're credentialed to be the expert, writing about the topic, and then the second sentence is an invitation. So, follow me on Facebook, or Twitter, what have you. So that's what I would suggest.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that. I'm just checking also for questions. We don't have any, but again, people are used to Thursdays. So please tell us how people can find you.
Oh, you're so nice.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because I think you've given us so much information here that we can take, but I also know, and take and run with it, but I also know I would get only so far without touching base again. So how can we find you, and how can we find your writing? And you write really good advice articles. So
thank you, Kathy. So my day job is with yourtango.com, which is a, kind of like a magazine sort of site. And there's lots of stuff up there. I run a business website. So if anybody's actually looking for SEO support or want to know more about SEO support, that's yourtangoexperts.com. And I have writing on both sites. And, if anybody needs support with their SEO and they want us to look at their website, we do audit sites for free. So we will absolutely run it through Google checkers and see what it says about the authority and how fast it is. There's a bunch of things to look at to see how healthy a website is. So, yeah, this topic is just so near and dear to my heart, and your success has been so fun to be a part of, from your book to, the website changes, this new thing we've been working on. I am absolutely just thrilled to watch how you've grown, and this is amazing, Kathy. If people had talked to us 2 years ago and said a little whisper in your ear and said, Kathy, you're going to be doing Facebook Lives once a week, you would have said, there's no way. No way I'm doing that. And look at you now. You're just amazing.
Well, thank you. I have much gratitude to you. I have much gratitude to Minnie, and I have a lot of gratitude to the people that have come on and talked about their books and let me ask them all my questions. I'm a question girl. And so bottom line is everybody needs this, and authors need it even if you think you don't. And Melanie said where you can find her, and now all we have is the teabag wisdom of the day, which I just think is so funny because it's not normal teabag wisdom.
Okay.
And it also is a little bit about coming back to the pond again, because I really think with SEO and Google Analytics and even social media knowledge, it takes coming back again and again and again.
Yeah.
So here it is. Dip me again. I thought you would love it as much as I do. I was like, what? And then I got, oh yeah, that's why.
With me again.
So I think that goes for our readers. I think it goes for writers. I think that we can't have our name out there enough, not to earn money, because there are plenty of people that say this. I don't write to earn a fortune, but if we're earning money, we're reaching people. So
God.
Thank you again, Melanie Gorman. Thank you for all the years together. Thank you for your role on Your Tango, which got me on my internet start. And thank you for being you. And thank you for being with us today. And for now, it's goodbye. I'm Kathy Ramsperger from shoresofoursouls.com and ground1coaching.com. Come visit me on my websites or reach out if you have a question about writing, writing craft, or just want to recommend a great book. And for now, I'm wishing everybody a great week with a great book. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Melanie.
Bye, Kathy.